What is up? The dust is starting to settle on this NBA offseason, and we got to start talking Raps. Are we happy with this offseason?
I think you have to be, man. I think you have to be. Talent infusion to the roster. A lot of young guys. I like pretty much everything they did. I like the pick, Jacoby Walter. Obviously, we don't know how they're going to turn out, but he fits like a positional need. They get a little more athleticism. Jonathan Mobo, our boy, drafted at the top of the second round.
His best friend.
I love Jamal Shed. Raptors fans love Kyle Lowry. He's not going to be Kyle Lowry. Obviously, it's a lot to put on the guy, but Dog has that little, that killer instinct. They acquired Davion Mitchell, who, again, Dog. I think
that was a sneaky underrated move. I like that Davion
off night,
move,
man.
Yeah.
They call him off night for
Why
a
not?
reason. He was great in Baylor. Now that he was a top 10 pick.
Top 10 pick? Yeah, 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
I like the type of guys they brought in. I think they needed a little more toughness, a little more tenacity. Wasn't happy that they weren't able to add another top pick. But, that is what it is. They get to move it to next year, and they get to do whatever they want. We'll talk about whether they should tank or not.
Look, we're not trying to hit home runs here with the way the offseason went. You're just trying to fill in the gap. You're trying to get some good singles, doubles, fill it in. And I just, like you said, character guys. I think they just brought in some guys that are going to really shape how they're going to...
Defenders, man.
Yeah, that's important. I mean, look at how the defense was the moment Pirtle went down last night, right? So, yeah, all these guys, good character. Do they have a ceiling? Not really. But, at least you're filling in spots with guys who can do some stuff.
Yeah, I think with the Barnes and Quickly contracts, they've now locked down who they think are the two cornerstones of the franchise. So Quickly's contract, probably came in a little higher than some have thought. There's going to be a lot of pressure on him next year.
So who's got more pressure, Barnes or Quickly, in your opinion?
I would say Quickly does.
I think
because
Quickly.
Barnes has made an all-star team. And Quickly is now being considered the second fiddle on the team.
And the fans already love Barnes, and he's on that ascension. Whereas if Quickly has a couple games and struggles, that's the type of player with the big money that a fan base will turn on quickly. Pardon the pun.
Oh, and then Barnes already got his max. Well, look, Franz got his max. Cade got his max. I think those guys are likely gonna give him a floor to perform. Because Scotty, as it's all set up, he's probably going to outperform both.
Well, you can make the argument he was most deserving of the max of that draft class.
Yeah, at this point.
I think time will tell still with Cade and the way Cade can create offensively. But
talking about pressure, right? You got two guys there as kind of a benchmark. They're like, how did Franz get that money? Blah, blah, blah. Well, IQ.
So, it's funny you guys say Quickly. To me, Barnes did make an all-star team. I want to see that commitment on the defensive end. To me, that's what's required, in my opinion, for this team to be good. Now, whether they're going to be good or not, I think we could talk about what their outlook is, but you gotta be ready to pull the chute if things go the other way.
Before we get into the whole the tank debate or whatever, if you're a tax team, why is that even a question? And that's why I'll play devil's advocate a little bit here with their offseason. What are you really locking yourself into? You're paying the tax for a team that on the high end next year wins 42 games. I think we would all consider that a great season.
That's a lot of wins.
That's what I'm saying. So what are you really locking in all this money for?
I think the Raptors have a recipe, right? I don't think they are a prototypical tanking team. I think they like to find themselves in the middle. They actually have some young guys they can build on, and they are making a bet on those young guys. Now, whether they are able to make the leap or not, I think it's a lot to ask. You said 42 wins.
I think that's crazy. I don't even think
that'd be insane. That's their high. What's the Raptors over under? Is it at 30 and a half?
Probably 32 and a half. Yeah.
So if they get 40, if that's the team that you believe in, that's a success in my opinion. Because now you can start.
That's a building block.
You can talk yourself into these guys being legitimate young pieces that you can start now building around the margins. That's the bet. Quickly, obviously, $35 million a year. A lot of pressure on him to be a second option. Probably gonna have to average at least 5-6 assists a game. Gonna have to bang a few threes a game. But it's on Barnes. Barnes needs to make that leap. He needs to be a no doubt all-star again, second year in a row. That needs to be a thing that happens for this team to make that leap. Everyone needs to stay healthy. They got a nice couple vets too that I think that can help the defense.
I was just gonna say. The defense is going to be very bad.
It's the most important.
Let's be honest. The personnel, they're small. They're a small team. They don't really have the defensive personnel to be good at this point. I know Davion is a nice guy off the bench who great at guarding point of attack, but how many minutes is he going to play? And he's not going to, completely transform your defense in a limited role. So you're looking at who the starters might be. Quickly, maybe Grady Dick, RJ at the 3, Barnes at the 4. That's a bad defensive lineup.
Yeah. But considering what was available and with what the Raptors were able to do, I don't think you're going to find a full-on solution right now. So based off of what was available, you just add on assets add-on players who have the opportunity to grow a little bit, and then you don't know what can you turn that into.
Oh no, don't
Draft
get me
has
wrong.
a good example, have a track record of that.
Don't get me wrong. I think the Davion Mitchell trade was good. Even I hope Vezenkov stays. He was a EuroLeague MVP.
why
I think
not?
he can be a useful player. Because what did they really give up? They acquired a couple second-round picks, and they traded for a bit of cap space. So those are the little moves around the margins that you need to make.
They used their space very wisely there. They found a way to get talent on the team because they have like a real bench now. Like last year, they did not. Like, no offense, but like Jordan Morrow coming off the bench.
Yeah.
Like Abaji playing a lot heavy minutes. Like we'll see what he can do this year as well. They just have dudes now.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important to see what you have with these guys, and you're just kind of building around the. You good?
I'm good.
You're like building around the
develop. Can you
What
develop
they
all these
do.
players? Well, and
what's supposed to be Darko's thing too.
And thank you for not bringing Gary Trent back. No, it was the right thing to do. I mean, it's not at the time of this taping. He hasn't been signed.
Hold on, wait. Let's check with Riz. What time are we at, Riz? Because there was a hot market of what time Fab would bring Gary Trent up. So like, are we close? Did we hit the under on that or what? Okay, wow, that's a fair line, yeah.
Because he didn't. The fit wasn't there anymore. A 25-year-old who. Why are you keeping him?
Walter plays the same
Yes,
position. Grady Dick
he's
plays the same
hemorrhaging playing
position.
time from younger guys.
And it's the market hasn't been that hot for him either. Man.
Oh, well, I mean,
non-existent. What are you talking about
non-existent.
that
Look at some of the other
Yeah.
shooter types. Look at what they're getting out there, these 1-year contracts. So, I mean, it's really telling. Tough spot for Gary. But, hey, at the same time, I mean, we talked about this the last time we went through this. You talk about, oh, he's a bad asset. Well, bad asset depends on the price given, right? So if he ends up getting a really cheap contract, it could literally be the exact opposite.
He
right?
could play himself into being a better asset.
Yeah.
I think the issue with him though is people look at the shooting. They're like, "Wow, he's a knockdown 3-point shooter." He's stationary though.
Yeah.
He's not a guy who can come off screens, and hit. He has to have the ball in his hands, kind of set up for it.
It wouldn't shock me.
There's a big difference.
It wouldn't shock me if he lands on a really good team as like a 9th or 10th man who can get hot and hit threes in a big moment.
Yeah.
But that's
Well, it was kind of like Clay ending up on Dallas like that. If they weren't able to swing that type of move, Trent's kind of the type of guy that comes off the bench and plays that Tim Hardaway role that was there before they traded him away. But I mean, when you talk about coming into the offseason, talk about bad contract, good contract, I think the main thing Raptors fans should be thinking about is developing guys who 2 to 3 years from now are going to be part of a team that can make an effective be an asset on a championship run. You got to think Grady's the guy that you're trying to set up for that, right? So having kind of someone in the way of that development, it's just long term, it's not good for the team. So regardless of what price they pay Gary, if it comes,
we'll see, man. The reason why Gary's not being signed right now is because he can't defend. Like that's what you use. I think what the playoffs showed us is you need two-way guys. So maybe, hopefully, Grady can develop into a two-way guy.
That's the hope.
He'll have to fill out his body and stuff. So I think they're just taking shots now, right? You take shots with young guys, see what you got, and listen, man. Like we're gonna talk about their outlook for this year. All right, man. If you start the season like 10-20. Like, might have to pull the shoot. Might have to pull the shoot.
Yeah.
Like, you go up against the Atlantic Division. You got 3 juggernauts in that division.
I don't think you go into the season saying we're tanking from the get-go.
No, you
play it out. Play it out.
Absolutely
Play it
not.
out half the season, 30, 40 games. See how you play.
Try early. Give Darko a chance to prove himself. Give these guys a chance to prove themselves. As the season goes along, if you get hit with injuries, if the guys aren't developing, if you're just running into tough opponents every night, you're losing close games, at some point I think you just need to be very methodical about what you're going to do. If you can, at some point, pull the shoot, fans are kind of behind it, they understand it, that's an ideal scenario, and then you put yourself in a situation to draft a legit prospect.
I also think it's important to plant a flag before draft, after draft. You probably weren't excited with how things are setting up in terms of development going into this year. Now that they've made all these offseason moves plus the draft, it's like, whoa, this is great. Like, regardless of how they play, win or lose, there's a scenario where, okay, like you said, if they got to pull the shoot, well, that's great because they got a lot of dudes now who can really gain from those rotation minutes that are going to be put on their plate, which is like value added versus dumping them off to some dude that's like not going to be on the team in a year.
It feels like a fresh start at the very least. Not that it's super optimistic season coming up, but at least they've kind of charted out a reasonable path.
Hey man, I was at Summer League last year. Like there was nothing to look forward to. Like it was Grady Dick, and then just a bunch of dudes who were no longer.
And he also didn't look good.
Dude, this Summer League roster, like Raptors are stacked. Like I'm not encouraging people to bet on.
Hold on, no. But I will say this.
But I would bet on the Raptors to win some games.
This is kind of a darkest timeline thing where it's like Yo, that Raptors Summer League we're stacked on our Summer League roster. That is not a good thing. But I think you leave for Vegas in a couple hours or tomorrow. Yeah. I think you're just excited. And as you should be. You'll get to watch good basketball.
They got Drew Timme, or Gonzaga guy on the roster. They actually have a decent centers who can shoot it. They got a bunch of athletes.
Hold on. I actually have an important question before getting away from this summer league stuff. Did the Bruce Brown gambit fail for the Raptors?
I think it's yet to be seen.
No, because they're probably.
But at what point is his value increasing?
Aren't they just going to move him? You just move him.
I know, but you've had a deadline and a draft to move him, and you haven't. So what does that tell you? He's making $23 million. I like Bruce Brown, but
he was a key
if the
part
value
of the
hasn't been there,
team.
but if the value hasn't been there at those 2 points, when are you getting value for him?
You have to assume that if the Raptors picked up the option on his contract, that they think they can trade him for something.
I know, but
you have to.
We've now seen that they can't.
Well,
we don't know that.
Okay, sorry. So they were not trying to shop him.
No, I would say not.
They can't. They haven't been able to. So
maybe they're.
Maybe they've chosen not to.
We can't predict what's happening.
So.
Or
I think
maybe
he's a culture guy.
Maybe they weren't ready to accept some of the offers, or they're just really trying to hold on for a big payout, right? We don't know yet.
But I don't see his value increasing. That's the issue.
No, he could play. No, his value can definitely increase. What if he's a good rotation dude?
But they know teams know who Bruce Brown is at this point.
I know, but
he's not. 3 months of him playing well isn't going to sway a contender into saying, "Oh, he's that guy now."
I think to Wes's point, maybe the price tag wasn't what they thought it should have been, and then now going into this year, people might be like, "Oh, we actually need that." He's shown he can be a good contributor on a championship team.
I like what he does. I'm just saying the draft felt like the time where you were going to move him.
Yeah.
I just don't think we know what's going to happen this year. A contender comes along and says, we really need a 7th guy. We need someone with a little bit of tenacity.
I agree. We can't predict the future.
And if you can get
injuries can happen.
Yeah, if you can get an extra, to me, I think you trade him for a first-round pick if it's on the table, especially in the 2025 draft.
See, I don't know if they got a second. I don't think a first was on the table for him. That's the problem.
So then I would agree with the Raptors then to hang on to the asset and see if you can get that. And in the meantime, I think he's a decent culture guy. He's a veteran. Because, we talked about this a lot, man. You don't want a bunch of young dudes just running around, failing, doing
you need some pros there to show them how to be a pro.
Yeah, that's very Charlotte Hornets-esque, right? You don't want that happening.
Yeah, you don't like Garrett Temple's, put a grown-up, put an adult in the room. But let's see what happens.
But as an asset, what we've seen is that the cap limitations are really stopping good teams from acquiring salary. And it's not nothing. He makes over $20 million.
Yeah,
but that's sort of what worries me about this makeup of this Raps team is you're what, 8 mil or 9 mil below the first apron. Why are you paying the salary to this team?
Why do you care?
Because it really limits you, and you're not going to be able to. What have you built for this money?
But limit them to do what? What are they doing?
They're gonna go big game hunting.
Yeah, they're gonna sign Paul George.
No, you're not gonna go big game hunting. But to me, you lack a direction. You're directionless. You're in the middle. You either need to be one of those 5 teams that's going for a title, or you need to be.
So we talked about
especially going into a draft. You need to be a bottom.
That's not how they do things.
They should do things that way.
Listen, look at what happened the last time they won a title, and that lead up to that. It was DeMar and Kyle. I think even.
And how many times that team made a conference final, made the playoffs every year. This team is directionless.
Well, hold on.
It took a while to get there, though.
But hold on, though. But now you've at least drafted a first rounder. You've sprinkled a few seconds. Now it comes down to, can you develop these guys into something? Mm-hmm. That's what they're betting on, because you have to use the space to some extent, right?
They're making a bet on Barnes and Quickly. This is a big bet on those two guys. They've also paid them.
I agree with the Barnes bet. It's the Quickly one where it was just and we all kind of had that same reaction. 35 mil a year. That's a big.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yep. Big salary.
Quickly, Barnes, and RJ.
Whereas versus if it's 30, you might be like, you feel a little better, but it's.
Anyway, I don't know. Well, I think they're going to be more fun to watch. At the end of the day, I think they're going to be
from a fan perspective, and for us trying to make content out of the Raptors, it's much better than what we had to deal with last year.
Exactly.
No, they're going to tread water. They're going to tread water the best they can, and then they're going to make a decision, right? And I think that's why it's very important that if they start off this season, if you look at the 40-game mark and they're 10 games under, I think you need to make a decision early, because there are a lot of other teams that are going to take.
You have faith in them, in this group, MLSE, this management thing, to make a bold move like that.
My gut says they're going to wait as long as possible.
Yeah, well, again,
that's usually how they do it.
So important to set expectations, right? You look at the landscape of how the Atlantic is. You look at what they're coming into this season versus pre-draft. Get excited about the opportunity for some of these young dudes to really show some stuff and develop this year. That's the expectation. Don't be expecting anything more than that. You're setting yourself up for failure.
Yep.
Dude, New York, Boston, Philly.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Those are juggernauts. What, top 3 favorites to win in the East?
Yeah.
I'd probably put all 3 of them up there ahead of Milwaukee. Those frauds. Sorry.
Anything else?
I got Summer League.
Yeah.
Summer League be
bet
fun.
the Raptors, man. Bet the Raptors.
What kind of blind advice is that?
They have a stacked roster. They have a stacked roster. What else are you going to bet on? What are you going to do with
It's
your
an
money?
exciting summer league.
What are you doing with your money?
This is
You
where
wanna
the
talk-
Raps are.
You know what you can bet on? Explore the lovely novelty prop market on FanDuel because there's a lot of good stuff like betting on the weather. That's what we can do instead of betting summer league.
hold on.
Shout out
Bet on the
Danielle.
weather.
Yeah, our girl. Do you not want to talk about like Philly signing George? Do you want to go there real quick?
No. Yeah, like I was gonna use that. I was gonna use that as a jumping off point. It's like
That's a big move,
the East.
man.
Yeah, I know. Like the East is absolutely loaded, and this is why, for me, from a Raps perspective, I think they lean more into that tanking direction because of how good everybody else got, and it's sort of like there is definitely like a clear divide at like the 5 or 6 mark versus the rest of the league. But I still don't think Boston's good enough to compete. Or sorry, Philly's good enough to compete with Boston. And I
Really?
don't think New York's good enough to compete with Boston.
Really?
Yeah. The New York thing to me, it's all just honestly, it's all kind of hinges on the health of OG.
Yep.
If OG
Yeah,
is
yeah,
healthy and they have their full
technically.
squad, that'll be a fun series.
And
Also,
Julius
keep in
Randle.
mind with Boston, like Porzingis is out for 6 months.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Their
who knows
luxury's
what
gone.
he's even
But
going
this
to
is
look like.
But did they even
window.
really need him to win the title? Not really.
No,
Well,
they can wait.
look
They can
at the
wait a
path.
year.
Look at the
They can
path
help.
they got, though.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to be tougher.
Yeah.
It can't get easier than that. I'll tell you that much.
No, for sure.
Right? Like,
It's just funny that like Daryl Morey went for the 3-star approach again, right? Like,
But are we really
George,
gonna? How many
Maxey,
times do you need to
Embiid.
see Embiid get
yeah, I'm not.
get tired?
I agree, man.
and
I-
exhausted in the
but
playoffs?
No.
making-
He's 30. He hasn't made it to the second round.
Yes.
You're making the same bet. Like you're making the same bet Morey made. Like
Oh,
we, can
100%.
talk, we can talk
No.
about it all we want. You're making the same Kawhi Paul George trade as well in
100%.
2019.
Great.
We're doing the same.
Maury's never won a championship.
He's come close.
Well, he hasn't.
Well, hey,
It's
1
come
out of 30
close.
teams do every
Philly
year,
arguably
right?
had.
It's
The
tough.
only thing no one's going to argue that Philly had a great offseason, even with bringing their own
and
dudes
Caleb
back.
Martin.
getting
the
PG.
Caleb Martin thing, that's
Yeah.
underrated.
No,
That's
getting
underrated.
PG was as good as you
Yes.
could have done.
I think Philly's going to be there. It's funny that they're going to the 3-star mold, where I think a lot of other teams are like 2 stars and a bunch of like
To me,
role
they're your
players.
classic.
They went 3. They went all in.
By December, you're going to see the Philly's a problem
Yeah.
post when they're like they're
Yeah.
going to be like 25 and 6,
Yeah.
and then it's going to be the same thing. Embiid's going to be hurt, or they're going to flame
Or
out.
he's,
Boston.
he's torching the Wizards.
On another note, like Embiid being able to play the Olympics
Oh,
when
come on,
when
yeah.
when he's hurt all season and
Kawhi.
that's crazy.
I think Kawhi wants it.
How can you actually let that guy play in Olympics? He doesn't make it through a round in the
Wants the gold
playoffs.
medal, man. He wants the gold medal. I think it's what he needs. I don't think he has.
He needs that.
It's
I
his
need you to
resume.
play a series.
His resume, man.
Okay, so hold on.
The
let's-
Clippers are just—they're a joke.
Yeah, I
man.
think we were-
joke of a franchise, man. Like,
If we were
how
gonna be-
embarrassing of a franchise can you be?
if we're giving out grades for the offseason, Clippers are probably like a D or an F,
Oh, yeah,
arguably,
rough,
and I think
rough.
Philly's
Be done with them, man. They tried to copy the whole Raptors blueprint. If they failed, it's over for them, man. It's a wrap on the
So
Clippers.
outside of Philly, then who do you think whose offseason do we like the most?
Dallas. The
Ah,
Dal-
Yeah.
Dallas, I don't
fine,
think it's
Dallas
the best.
fine.
I mean,
That's
OKC number one.
OKC, yeah.
You like
OKC
OKC's
number one
offseason more than Philly?
OKC gets the gold
yeah,
medal.
look, listen.
Okay,
Philly
well.
landed Paul George, great, but if you're talking about long term, I just don't think they have the long term. Like OKC, long term is really, really well set up right now. So I just think I love Caruso. I just think Caruso was the piece to fit. He's so much better of a fit than Josh Giddey. And then Hardenstein, big overpay.
They're deep.
That's
Overpay, but it still lines up with how the books are going to be for them with the guys that they got to sign.
Team
off.
option on the 3rd year.
they're
they can
deep.
control
while I
him.
love that trade for OKC, Chicago actually I think wins that trade getting Giddey.
Whoa.
No, dude, I think Giddey is a better asset than Caruso.
What's Giddey?
I think
What
Giddey,
is Giddey?
I think Giddey is
not a
how
terrible
old
fit.
is Giddey?
Okay, so,
Giddey's gonna be this guy who plays on
22.
bad teams his whole career.
so
Maybe.
Giddey's gonna be
he-
fantasy
he-
stud next year.
he-
Giddey will win fantasy league.
that guy
next
couldn't
year.
even stay on the floor in the playoffs.
Yeah,
so-
that's
so-
fine. He's super young.
He's not going to develop a shot,
I agree
in my
for
opinion.
for your fit, Caruso makes sense, but I think Giddey will be a very good player for a
I think-
bad
I think-
Chicago team who's
yeah,
going to
he's going to put up numbers
Listen,
on bad teams.
this
That's
happens.
his destiny.
I think there's a win-win scenario that happens in trades, and this could be one of those. But I just think Caruso on a team that's competing for championships
Yeah,
right now
it's a
is
good fit.
so
Perfect
much
fit.
better
Of course.
than what was the previous
I
iteration.
think the Giddey thing. So I like the Zag. I respect the Zag. I actually do think he's fitting.
He's
pretty
undervalued.
nicely in with Chicago,
yeah.
especially when they got rid of DeRozan.
You need
DeRozan's
to
on the
figure out
Kings.
a role for him.
I don't think he's
My thing
undervalued at
is
all.
what the Bulls are doing from an asset like management situation. Like you essentially lost DeRozan and Caruso and got like not much back. Giddey and what? like.
Well, the DeRozan trade, they got nothing back.
But you could have traded him in the regular season, knowing you weren't going anywhere. I just question what they're doing.
How did San Antonio get a pick swap out of that DeRozan?
Because they took Barnes' contract.
Yes, but like,
yeah, no.
How did the Bulls only get 2 seconds?
You know what?
Savants, man.
Also, shout
Is
out.
that what it was? 2 seconds, right? That's all they got.
Yeah, Bulls.
San Antonio made some decent moves. I don't know what their win total is going to be, but
Hammer the over.
Honestly, it's a good idea to just whenever Wemby awards come up, just bet everything.
How do we
just
make money on Wemby? How do we make money on Wemby?
I want to see what the DPOY are this time.
Okay, I know we're not like so DPOY Wemby. What are his odds? We were talking about it the other day. Right now,
plus 200.
Plus 200 is a good
He
number.
thinks it's going to be minus.
I think it might be like plus 100.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough.
It's gonna be like even money. They're not giving it to Gobert again. They're not doing that.
No, he can't be minus money, man. That's crazy.
You know what? Turn the cameras off. We will carry on this conversation.
We'll keep going.
This conversation will carry on until you hopefully see us again in September.
The boys of summer.
Yeah, last pod, right?
Yeah.
So little hiatus.
Yeah.
Bet Raps summer.
See ya. Thanks. Like and subscribe.